Okay. I can't. Okay.
I can't focus.
Starting is the hardest part. Otherwise, Okay.
Do you remember what it's called?
The Jason Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a Talking About Who special. This time we are talking again about Evil of the Daleks, this time in its shiny animated form. So you will have just watched us talk about this on season 4, so bear with. I'm sure there'll be plenty of new material because we've got a special guest star. So let's have everybody else introduce themselves. I am Paul or P-Bal. Say nice things, and I'm joined by...
Hello, it's James.
Hello, it's Jason.
Hello, Ben.
Ben's back with us.
Hello,
hey.
Ben.
Ben.
Yes.
Special Ben.
Special Ben? What does that mean?
Because Ben comes in and joins us for our specials, our Talking About specials.
Little bit of early shade there, Jason.
No, it was not. It was not. I like Ben coming. Ben, you're looking very spooky tonight, love.
Yes. Well, I thought I'd get in the Halloween mood early.
So is Jason.
I beg pardon.
Anyway, enough ghoulish endeavours. We've sort of had quite a long haul through season 4. Bless you if you made it through.
I'm scared still.
We haven't heard Ben's thoughts. Ben, are you a fan of Evil of the Daleks?
Yes. I really like it, actually. I think it's a good end to that season. It's a nice. I mean, yes, it does sag in the middle a little bit, but otherwise, I think there's some great performances in it. Some really good guest stars. The Daleks are great, even though it's supposed to be their final swan song. And I enjoy it. I think it's well directed. It's got some great footage at Grimsdyke, and I think it works really well.
I love how when you said it sags in the middle, Jason took immediate offence to that, as if you were talking about...
Well, no, I shook my head because, as I will describe a little later on, I think I've changed my opinion about the sag in the middle of this one.
Which basically translates as he didn't watch it for the review before, and now he's watched the animation and he knows what actually happens in it.
No, you know my dislike of the telesnaps. I've told you before. I can't.
So is it a different story in the animation then, or is it the same soundtracks with visuals?
It's visuals. You know what I'm like with the visuals. Once I've got something that's moving around on the screen, I know exactly where I am then.
Yeah. I mean, Lee said soon as Mandy. So, but I'll come back to Ben because we can have a little bit of sense here. Is it a story that you've listened to then before? I mean, it's because previously it was just soundtrack and missing episodes. I suppose there's recon and stuff like that. So is it a story that you're familiar with and you'd go back to, or is it just one that you think was good and,
I'm familiar with it, yeah. Maybe not as familiar as some of the other episodes, but I'm quite familiar with it, yeah. I remember watching the recon, obviously episode 2, which is a really good episode. So that's one of those ones that obviously, it was found a long time ago, back in 87, I think it was. And it is a really good episode. And it'll be nice to see some of the others back someday, perhaps, who knows. but no, I would have, that's probably how I would have, and the novelization as well. I remember getting that. That's quite a difficult book to get, actually. I think it's one of those rare ones, isn't it?
I think both appeal Dalek ones. I mean, I've got a copy, but I'm going to go on record here and say that I actually haven't read it.
Ooh,
how unlike you!
Well, I could list a lot of books I've not read. I've read Learning to Fly by Victoria Beckham, though. What more could you need to read? I'm sure she's a massive fan of Evil of the Daleks. So, obviously, we've all sort of come back to this now because it's got an animation, and we have mixed thoughts on animations quite often, I think. But this is a different team to the last thing that we had to watch. What do we think of the styling on Evil of the Daleks then?
I have to say I went in with a sort of mixed feelings. As you say, we've talked about different animations. We've not necessarily always agreed on the animations. And so there was part of me that really wanted to see this story, but really was a little bit nervous about the animation. And I have to say, I really liked the animation in this. There were a couple of things, and I'm sure we'll come on to that. But throughout, I thought the animation was really good. I've watched the colour version and the black and white, and I enjoyed both of them, actually. You know, it's quite, in the black and white, you get the more atmospheric, but I think they've done such a good job, and there are some amazing shots in this, which really, when we talk about some of the other ones that we've reviewed already, really just knock them out of the park.
Yeah, I'd agree. I think the animation, I went in with, a bit like yourself, a little bit of a mixed mind. Obviously, I think I was quite clear in the last review that we did that I don't think there's been an animation that's been entirely perfect out of all the ones that we've had across the time. But I'm quite happy to sit and say that I think that the team behind Evil of the Daleks have delivered a real masterpiece in animation on this one. I think it's for me personally, feels like the best one that we've had so far. They've obviously done a few Dalek stories now, so they've had plenty of experience in getting that sort of nice, unique feel of the Daleks animated in the way that they are. I did have mixed minds on it. I think I sat down to watch it to start with, and then there's that little scene at the airport just at the beginning, and the Doctor and Jamie are running behind the truck, and that's a little bit clunky. And I was thinking, oh God, maybe this isn't going to be quite as good as I'd hoped it would be, but it very, very soon settles down. And what was nice, actually, we James and I had an opportunity, and Ben actually, we took the opportunity to see it at the BFI. And we had a bit of a Q&A afterwards with the team behind it. And they've definitely got a bit of love for Doctor Who. And it comes across, I think, in the animation and in the way that this is done. There's a fantastic shot that swings around a sort of an animated model of Grimm's Dyke. And it is so well done. And it really sets the tone for that part of the story. When we've moved from sort of 1966 to 1866, and it really introduces it and presents it well into us, almost as if we're traveling into it. So yeah, I think the team have done a great job here. And as I said, I think I'd be on record as saying I think this is the best one so far.
I think masterpiece is going it though, Clifford. That's quite a statement, isn't it?
No, I don't. I've tended to watch the animations in black and white previously, and this is probably the first one that I've sat and watched, I think, throughout in the color, and done it all pretty much in one sitting. And I'm going to now have to go back, I think, and review some of the other animations that are also on the discs in color, because I'm a bit of a traditionalist with watching 60s Doctor Who. And I like to sort of watch it, as James has said, sort of black and white, and you do get that sort of atmospheric. So, for example, I watched The Web of Fear, and I watched the animation in black and white on that one, as I've done on a couple of the other ones, particularly Fury from the Deep. And I'm now going to probably have to go back and revisit some of the earlier animations just to sort of get the sense of how they come across in color as well. But I've watched a couple of the episodes of this in black and white, and it does add the atmosphere. But the color presentation, I think, and the way that the palette is presented, I just think it's really strong. It's really good.
There's some great. You mentioned the sort of swing down round the house, the bit where you're seeing it from the balcony with the Dalek underneath I think, you know, that's quite a unusual shot. There's a wonderful bit where the Dalek just glides backwards into the darkness as well, which I just think is just so well done. That actually I find the Daleks more sinister in the animation than in the episode 2, because I watched that, you know, when he kills the guy that's opening the safe, and actually I found the animation was creepier than the actual live action.
But they're getting away with shots in the animation, and they're able to reimagine and reinvent here in a way that the restrictions of television back in the 60s would certainly have stopped them doing, particularly as you know, they filmed quite a bit of this on location in Grimsdyke, and it appears that the building was quite unsafe in parts, and obviously I don't think it would have quite got away with some of the shots in the way that they were presented in the animation. But that one scene, you're quite right, the way that the Dalek sort of glides into the background and the eye just blinks out and then comes back out at the end, superbly done.
I think you can do some shots, I guess, in a different way. But by the same token, the bits where people run are still, I mean, they're still quite ropey. And I enjoyed this. I'm not saying anything horrible about it. I'm not going for it, because I think in my head, actually, it's not like it's a replacement for the original, because it couldn't be a replacement for the other one. It's an introduction for people that can't sit through a telly snap or won't listen to the soundtrack. And I think it's an easy way in for people, because, you know, you've got a colour version. It's very modern, I suppose, that people can just come at this. So I don't actually get. I think because the shot, and it's a nice enough shot, and the shot of the laboratory that you get the panning and stuff, which, you know, they can do that because, you know, they're just computer animating it. That's fine, and I think that's fine that that's not in the actual episode, because this isn't a copy. You're not doing a frame for frame reconstruction of it. That said, I still think some of the characters, maybe, I think if you cropped Debbie's head and said, which Doctor Who girl is this, I think you'd struggle. There are some people that I get. The caricature of Troughton works. It is a caricature of Troughton, though. I mean, it's not he never had those death bags under his eyes, but it's fine, and I think it works because you know who it is. It's a caricature, and that's great. But I suppose some of the other characters who are less obvious. I mean, Max the Bull's a very easy draw because you can do the beard and the glasses, and it's great. But there were points sort of looking at the Victoria drawing, and I was just thinking, it looks more like Denise Buckley. I don't know if we've readjusted history here and we're going for the alternative world. I don't know. Does anybody else like the likenesses?
I thought the likenesses were quite good this time. I think they were probably some of the best I've seen. I agree that not all of them are absolutely exact. It's probably really, really difficult to get an exact replica of how the actors actually look. But I think this time they did a good job, and I think, like, for example, when Windsor Davies comes on, you can just see in his face before he even speaks, they've got the look of him, you know, and you can sort of recognize that's who that is. So I think I think they definitely did a good job this time around.
I think
just on the Windsor Davies thing there, just because obviously I like to tell Clifford he's wrong. Is Windsor Davies's character in the story for any other reason than to just stretch something out for 2 episodes? What is that for? And you know, we have literally just watched it, and watching it back again, it was even more sort of a what's he for?
Yeah, I agree. He sort of comes in, he whacks Jamie over the head, then he goes back to the barn in the next episode, and then he says, and then I think Terrell pays him, then he has a bit of a chat, say, I'm going to get paid, and then I think then eventually the next episode, then he's just wandering around the lab, and then he gets shot by the Dalek, and you think, well, something's missing there. Like, obviously some sort of storyline was meant to be, extended a bit for his character, and instead maybe they cut a bit. And you're right, he's very much he's quite wasted, really, I think, in that role.
I think what they do get right in this animation are the Daleks. I think they've really got a good. I mean, obviously Daleks are quite. I'm going to sit here and say quite easy to animate, but probably not actually. But I think that the scenes with the Daleks, and particularly the scenes on Skaro with that whole sort of Emperor Dalek piece at the end, I think they really capture the mood of it. And this is where I think the animation comes truly into life for me. It are the scenes where you've got the Daleks. Yes, okay, there are one or two of the likenesses that of the cast that aren't quite right. Some of the running and the bits are still not perfect. But if you've watched the development of how these guys have worked on this particular team with the Daleks, and they've just gotten better and better, I think, with each release that they've come up with, because they've got lots of renders from previous animations that they can possibly go back to and work with and reuse. But they look like they've improved their process and the artistry of it each time they've released a Dalek story in this style.
It's interesting as well because we get to watch episode 2 that we all know. So it's interesting to see how they animate all the bits of it, because obviously we've got a whole episode to watch and we know what bit is what and what expressions happen and the sets and the actors and that sort of thing, just for that. So it's interesting to compare the existing episode 2 with how they animated it. But also, on the other hand, it's interesting to watch all the scenes with Jamie and Camel, whereas if you had watched the recon or you'd even listened to the audio years ago, there's so much silence or knocking over things or oof, that sort of thing, and you can't really work out what's going on. So at least the animation brings that whole section to life now, I find.
I think on this sort of same note there is that I'm genuine. I'm not picking on I think the likenesses are fine. I don't actually have like a rage against them. Some of them are better than others, but I don't dislike anything on it. What I was interested with actually is that I liked the transition shot for Victoria's first appearance, because you can really do that quite easily. Although they still picked an unflattering image for it. But anyway, we'll move on. I like the styling. But the bit in the antique shop where the Doctor and Jamie come in, and there's a lot of expression there that you can get with Fraser or you can get with Pat, that you then can't, you just literally can't do it. And I wouldn't expect them to be able to do it. But it's amazing how just those little bits of them knocking antiques or holding, that is all a lot of character in the face, which you can't begin to animate. So you know, throughout this, there's obviously going to be swathes of it where actually you're probably getting a lot more, you know, than could be shown on screen.
Yeah, we talked previously, didn't we, about Pat Troughton being very physical, very, you know, the comedy and the expression. And I think you're right. You can't. It's very difficult to animate that when his face is actually quite physically animated all the time. I think watching episode 2, you know, where they're, like you say, when they're in the antique shop and he's like, "Don't knock anything over," and Jamie knocks something over, and you see all of that, and it's quite amusing, and there's quite a lot of humour in this. But I think in the animated version, the humour comes from things like the Daleks, when there's, you know, when they've got the human factor and they're going dizzy Dalek, dizzy Dalek, and sort of, you know, riding around with the Doctor on the front of it playing trains. There still is that humour and that sort of sense of mischief. But I do agree it's really difficult to animate that in a human face. You know, and we talk about the running. There's this one point where the Doctor's got like 4 finger joints or something. It's like his finger's got an extra joint to it. It looks a bit weird, a bit spindly, but it's only for like one shot, and the running is only in that sort of first bit. And when I watched it again, I kind of didn't mind the second time. It's a bit Scooby-Doo, but you kind of like, it is really difficult to animate someone running. So I just kind of just went, yeah, that's just how they've chosen to do it. But some of the other shots, and I'm sure we'll talk about the battle at the end in a moment, but some of those shots, brilliant. Things that previously, yes, there have been telesnaps and yes, there have been clips of it, but to see the whole sort of big battle at the end was really good.
I don't know if you noticed, but when what I was saying before about animating episode 2, because we know it so well, the one bit I did notice is that Kennedy throughout is wearing a sort of a suit. And in the animated version, he's still wearing a suit at the end when he's shot. But in the actual episode, he well, not one, because obviously one doesn't exist, but you can see in the telesnaps, in the reconstruction, that he changes into a sweater, like a white
turtleneck.
Yeah, turtleneck. There you go. Thank you. So he's got a turtleneck on, and yeah. So obviously they decided to just keep with what he was wearing rather than animate a turtleneck on him. So that's one of the.
He also does that a lot when he's standing. His arms go out a lot. He does. Yeah. Kennedy's a bit like that.
Yeah. And there's bits where he's sort of like leaning, sort of like on the desk like that.
Kennedy's a bit of a teapot in the animation. There were moments where I was like, this is meant to be quite sinister, or he's meant to be a bit mean and moody, and it was just kind of like,
yes,
I don't know. You can be a camp villain, I suppose.
True. And also, for some reason, Kemmel has no nipples.
Yes, I was going to say that.
I'd never noticed that.
Did you not?
I'm surprised you didn't.
Well, I know. I'm surprised I didn't notice it as well.
Perhaps you can't animate running or nipples. They might be the two difficult things. That and cleaning machines. If you've got a cleaning machine, a nipple, or someone running, don't bother coming. Don't ask. It's not going to happen.
Oh, so there's a. Oh God.
So I was going to say. So let's hope there's not a scene in the Space Pirates where someone's running along with no top on and they're going to a cleaning machine. It's not going to work.
There's a wonderful moment when the Dalek comes along with, I think it's with Victoria's handkerchief, but it looks like it's doing the dusting. It just comes along. It's just after Jamie breaks the vase. It's like it's coming to clean up. It's brilliant.
So, I think I don't want to say about the animation before we go wider on the release here.
What do you think of the battle at the end? What are your thoughts? Or just leave me hanging? I enjoyed it.
Not at all. Do you know what? Yeah. For years we've seen the photos and the clips, and we've obviously they used Louis Mark's Daleks for the sort of staging when they were doing the model work for Evil of the Daleks. And I think on the budget, I'd still love to see. I really still would love to see the original film, as we all would. I think we've said that enough times in our season 4 review that we've recently done. But I think they really do. This is where the animation for me comes into that real just steps up another level, because I do think that they, again, because we're talking Daleks here and we're talking it's a set piece, they've got time. They've had time to obviously animate it well. I think they've put thought, they've put detail into it, particularly down to the little bits of detail around, as a Dalek explodes, there's, a mutant creature inside, and, they've clearly not restricted by budget of being able to only have the same 3 Daleks and then painting the tops of them and moving them around and doing it.
You get the mutant in the real thing though, don't you? Because there's actually clips of the mutant coming out. So
that's what I'm saying. I think the detailing's right though. But obviously they will have embellished that a little bit, because of course, like we've said, it's not a frame for frame remake of the telesnaps. But I like that bit where they've taken it probably on a little bit more than they would have done from the televised version, the real live version. And I just think the whole thing has a real guide. I mean, I do not get bored of this. I've watched this a couple of times now, the sort of epic end battle. And, you can just see, I think, you can imagine how it would have looked on screen, but I think the animation will be what we will probably end up living, or I'll live with the rest of my days with. I don't unfortunately, as we said, many film copies of this were not sold abroad, so the chances of us getting this back are a little more remote than some others. But I'll take that rather than a telesnap, and have that as the epic battle at the end of Evil of the Daleks for me, and that will do just nicely because I think they did a really good job of it.
There's a nice little nod at the end as well. Well, at the beginning of episode 7 or the end of episode 6, where the Doctor and everyone else are walking into the big chamber, and then the Emperor is first revealed, and it's a little nod to the new series where the Dalek sort of says Doctor, and it's the Emperor Dalek speaking, and it's in darkness, and then it sort of, is revealed. So yeah, little touches like that, which I think they probably like to do a little homage.
So on the extras front, it's slightly scant on this release. It's three discs, isn't it? I think sometimes slightly by dint of the fact this is 50 years ago, and it's pop luck in a lot of ways, which ones you can cover with greatness and not. There wasn't an awful lot to plough through, shall we say, on the extras front.
I mean, clearly in this release, because you're talking about a story that's 7 episodes, they've effectively put the story on the disc, on each disc, in one guise or the other. You've got the color version on disc 1. I think you've got the black and white version of the animation on disc 2. And on disc 3, you sort of have the reconstruction versions of the story, and episode 2 and sort of the some of the additional commentaries. And because I think the 2 discs are taken up because it's a 7-episode story, I always thought Blu-ray had a better capacity than having to sort of, in the old days of DVD, 7 episodes just about got on a disc. And yes, you'd expect to fill up 2 discs and then have a disc worth of extras. This feels really light because you've filled up, Blu-ray, 1 Blu-ray, 2nd Blu-ray, 3rd Blu-ray has got more episodes, more reconstructions, and very little in the way of added value material, which is a shame, because I think a trick has been missed here. And I also think that they could have delved into the archives a little bit more and brought us a little bit more of what was on some of the original releases, because I know it's been done before, but for me, this release desperately lacks a new feature, or even take the feature of that was done for Debs and bring it across onto this release, because as it's her first story, I think it had a place in this release.
Mm-hmm. Compared to the last, when we were reviewing Web of Fear, there were some really nice documentaries at the end, and I just felt this one was lacking that. I mean, I watched them, but I don't know. I just didn't think there was as much there to enjoy afterwards.
If you're a fan of designer Chris Thompson, you're laughing because he's on the commentary for episode 2. He's in the making of, and there's also a special interview done by Phantom regular Phil Newman.
Oh yeah, actually, and I think Phil did a great job on that.
He
interview,
did.
Actually, I think he looked really natural and relaxed, and I think it was a great interview in general. So good shout out there to Phantom regular Phil there for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely, and it was great to see the props that he still had as well in that interview. Is really interesting.
His stolen casket with the hole.
Well,
I think, I like the main documentary, the hero documentary. It's nice. It's nicely shot, nice contributions and all that. I think the difficulty comes is that there isn't an awful lot else you can do if Bridget and Joe and other people don't want to be involved in it. There's nobody else that you can sort of go to that you can't. It's fairly limited. But that said, and who am I to say this? But were I producing it, I would have probably erred on actually Simon clearly knows an awful lot about Eve of the Daleks, having written a book on it. Why not have him do the commentary for episode 5? Why not get some more people? Why not ask Nick and Barnaby, because they're Daleks and they're fans, and they could talk about you, because it's all, but a lot of this is done by Zoom, so it's not even a question of transporting people. You could have filled each one of those episodes with a commentary, even if it wasn't a commentary with somebody that was in the episode. So I think I slightly felt not cheated, because that would be an unfair thing, because there was a lot of commentary on there, and the ones which are there, I didn't listen to the Richard Marston one because I wouldn't do that to myself, but the ones which are there are absolutely great, and I think they help cover the episode well.
And for the first time ever, we get a commentary on the photo gallery.
Do you know, I haven't watched the photo gallery, but who talks over the photo gallery?
It's Tim Coombe, moderated by Toby Hadoke.
What does he say? Oh, this is Debs. She's got a lovely dress. And here's more of Debs. She's still in a lovely dress.
He does say that, actually.
Gosh. Oh my, well, I think that could be the way forward for photo galleries.
Yeah.
So,
when I was watching, I thought, hang on a second, they're chatting over this. So yeah, it's a first.
So how many different versions are there on this disc? Because I know we did this with the Web of Fear. How many different versions or ways can you watch this?
Well, on the release. So yeah. I think there's the colour, there's the black and white animation, and then there's the Telesnap reconstruction, the Tom Baker narrated audio.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then you've got iterations of commentaries, because
there are some commentaries on the colour episodes, I think, and then there are some commentaries on the recons, I think, that they sort of mix and match it around.
And every word is golden.
Absolutely. I'll tell you what, that I haven't listened to all of it, but I started to listen to a bit of the Tom Baker audio book, and my God, Mark Ayres has done an absolutely amazing job with the main sound. Because when we watched it at the BFI, as you mentioned, Jason, it was like the sound was like absolutely amazing. You think, wow, this comes from an old recording that someone put their little reel-to-reel recorder up to the TV and recorded all those years ago, and it sounds absolutely amazing. But you listen to the Tom Baker narrated audio book, and you can just hear like that, and it's
until Tom kicks in, and then it's like that.
It's very booming.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, you suddenly, because you start to turn the volume up, thinking, I can't hear this, and then Jamie goes, and you think, oh my God, it's turned down.
Yeah, I used to listen to it on my personal stereo, my Walkman.
Hey.
Yeah.
I used to drag my 78 record player down the street behind me.
Was that on the way down the mines?
Yeah.
So I think we've done the main documentary. There is a carryover from a previous release where you get the narrated model footage, don't you, as well? And obviously Phil's in-vision chat with Chris. I think that could conclude the results of the televote, couldn't it? I don't. Nothing else is coming to my mind that's on there. As a complete release, then, I mean, the selling point obviously has to be for this the animation. It can't. I don't think you could necessarily tell someone you should buy this because the extras on it are incredible, and that's nothing to say the extras are bad, but I mean. Shiny Steelbook, he cost £30, man, £30. Does it justify it? But I think Steelbooks are obviously a slightly different thing, aren't they? Because they're always premium.
Sorry to interrupt. Didn't it used to be that the Steelbook would always have something extra that the DVD and the Blu-ray wouldn't. So originally people were like, oh, I must buy the Steelbook because it's got this, this, this. But I think now the Steelbook has the exact same content. So it's just a case of, do you want to buy a lovely tin case?
I do like the artwork on all of the Steelbooks, and I think the artwork stands out well. It's not enough of a point of difference. I'm going to agree with P-Bal on this. That, you know, the cost of a Steelbook versus the standard release does not make for a piece of cover art. But there is something pretty about Steelbook, I've got to say, and I've been a collector of the Steelbooks now for some time. Do I think this release is worth it? I think for the animation, buying the standard release, or if that's your decision is to buy the sort of Steelbook, that's a personal decision of whoever's purchasing it. But to purchase the release on the strength of this animation, yes, I think it is. I think it is a good enough release to support buying that for 7 episodes of animation, because I think it's bringing to story. It is genuinely bringing to life a story that I think will be lost forever.
I agree, and a little part of me hopes that they're holding something back for the season 4 Blu-ray, that they've got other stuff that they just didn't want to give out. But no, on the strength of the animation alone, I would recommend buying this story.
Right. I should note that whilst it does look like it's still shrink wrap, I have done my traditional trick of only opening the top and
See, every time I hear you say that, I just imagine you sort of like returning stuff at Woolworths. Yeah. You know, I'm watching it at the weekend and then going back in on Monday going, oh, no, it came like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. To be honest, I'm going to be honest. There's one extra on here that I think should have been on this release that's definitely been overlooked and missed. And this is this startling revelation that we had from James in the season 4 review when we were talking about Evil of the Daleks, where apparently the Emperor was in the episode of Thunderbirds there. I can't even remember the episode, but I'm surprised that's not made it on here. I sent you a
screenshot of it after you gave me some ribbing after the last
video. I'm surprised that's not made it on here. I think it's the perfect extra for this.
Like I said, holding back for the Blu-ray box set.
I'm actually slightly concerned that we've been bereft of any facts today.
Well, you know what? And when I was watching this, I was waiting for, you know, some of the sort of Easter eggs, because I know that some of you don't particularly like them, and there were very few in this. When they were doing the talk afterwards, when we watched the serial, yes, they are Doctor Who fans, but they're not like that sort of. What's the word I'm looking for? They weren't sort of like, oh, we've got to throw in loads of different Easter eggs and posters of people, etc. There was one at the very beginning, which was the lady from Galaxy 4, I think it was.
Marga.
Yeah. But then, you know, there wasn't, in some of the stories we talked about previously, but they've animated it and it's a distraction that you've got all these different versions of the Master on the wall or whatever else. In this, they focused on the story. And like you say, the shots of the lab, the shots of the outside of the house, etc., were beautifully done. They didn't. I kept waiting for a poster of someone on the wall or something, you know, just so I could go, But actually, it wasn't.
There's a coat of arms that says Whittaker on the wall, isn't there?
Yes.
Yeah.
Subtle.
And some people are up in arms for the wrong reason.
Actually, that said, there is a David Whittaker documentary, which would have been quite a good outlet for this to go on. I'm sure there will be other outlets available, but it would have made a lot of sense for it to go on this release. But I guess it's budgets and what you want to put on what, and you know, maybe when they redo it in another year's time, we'll have a super special edition.
Well, you're not suggesting that potentially the episodes are coming back, are you?
No, I'm on about them repackaging the same thing twice. Power of the Daleks.
Of course. Yeah, no, absolutely. It's been done before and it can be done again. However, I know we've talked about the documentary already, and I just realised I haven't actually added my support to it. But I agree. I think the documentary in itself in this one is very worthy of being on the set. It's good. It gallops along and tells you the story. It's in the same vein as the Web of Fear, where you're putting Fraser in amongst the locations, and that seems to work quite well. But again, I think it's a pretty good. It's a pretty good sort of documentary in its own right. Stands well on its own, which is quite good, because I think if that hadn't been quite so good, I think this set probably would have been a little bit of a letdown, even with the animation on it. But it's certainly one of the saving pieces of the value-added material that's on here.
Right. So I think in summation, we're not scoring, are we? We're going to be saying whether we think it's what?
Yeah, I was going to ask whether or not you thought it improved the score because of the animation, because we didn't have anything to go on.
Yeah, because I think this is quite interesting actually, because having talked about this now, the way that we had done very recently, we recorded season 4, so this is quite quick after. It is interesting to see whether or not this has actually changed any of the original reviewers' position on this story over and above where they were originally.
It hasn't for me, no. Has it brightened your life?
I actually think it's given the story a bit more depth for me, because although jokingly you suggested I didn't watch it the first time round, I did actually watch the telesnaps. And I'm afraid to say, as always, telesnap viewings for me don't always help me see what a story is. I think, I don't know what it is. Possibly I'm quite a visual person given the trade I'm in, but the visual is important to me. And there were some elements of the story that, for whatever reason, I had missed the first viewing round. And it does bring to life scenes like when the Daleks are in the laboratory and they are doing the sort of Dizzy Daleks bit, and the telesnaps show you how that's going to look, but it adds a little bit extra. And I think previously, in the previous review, I talked about this. I did actually say that I felt that the story had sagged a little in the middle, but in rewatching it as an animation, no, my submission of this story has changed, because it's a story now in sort of 3 very distinct chunks. The 66 stuff, the 1866 stuff, and then Skaro. And I felt the 1866 material had sagged a little in the middle. I don't think it does now, because I can see the visual of Jamie and Kemel having that fight. I can see the Dizzy Dalek spinning in the laboratory. I can see the laboratory in all its glory, animated, admittedly, but it's giving me a sense of the almost epic element of, I think, what this story ultimately was back in 1967. And they're letting me hang.
I don't think I'm so reliant on an animation for that. I would still say that narrative-wise there is a definite lull, I think, where it sort of is gearing up to go off to Skaro, and the big sort of peak, the rush on it, is those last 2 episodes. Episode 1's fairly leisurely, really. All it's achieving is getting the Doctor and Jamie kidnapped. I mean, there are sort of pacing-wise throughout, there are sort of problems. Like I scored the best out of season 4, and I'd stand by that. I like it, I enjoy it, but I acknowledge the faults, and I don't think that an animation is going to rectify those faults for me, because I can fill in I can smart blur the tally snaps and animate that there. I'm good. But I enjoyed it. I mean, having had to watch it, had a lot of Evil of the Daleks. I mean, you watch it, and then the commentaries, and you've had to watch it. I've had a lot of Evil of the Daleks, but I haven't been too traumatized by that, which is a sign that it's a decent story. I mean, it's not like I've had to tip through. I was going to do spoilers for the next review, so I won't. Yeah, no, I'm not going to
spoil it.
I'm not going to do that yet. But yeah, Okay, it's not like having to sit through Genesis of the Daleks, is it?
I
Yeah.
was waiting for you to say that.
Ooh.
Hashtag justice for Genesis. I still say it even to this day.
Well, you're obviously a bigger Phil Collins fan than I am. Right. So let's go first. Let's go for our hit, miss, or maybe then. Go on, Clifford. Give us a wave of your thumb.
Okay.
It's not shaking anyway.
Okay, so I think you can tell from the way that I've talked about the story. I originally scored this story a 9. I know we're not scoring, but I'm just reminding the viewer out there that I scored this story a healthy 9 when I reviewed it as part of season 4. As a release, I think obviously the animation is the star of the show. If it had been a mix of episodes and animation and just a little bit of extra value added material, may have felt a little bit different, but we've got all 7 episodes animated. It makes it a complete release for me. So I can ignore the fact that maybe there could have been another couple of documentaries or some features in there. It's nice to have all the sort of the sort of Tom Baker narration stuff on there, and there are some really good commentaries. A bit light. I think I agree with P-Bal. Could have done a few bits of difference there with a few points of difference with different people, but it's going to be a thumbs up from me.
You. I thought we were going to go into the whole of season 4 territory there.
I mean, I don't know if I've broken a new record there. I don't know.
That felt like 7 episodes.
7.5.
Did it sag in the middle for you, Ben?
Yes.
Well, we're not reviewing Jason being an old sagger. How about you, James?
Behave.
I've made no secret of the fact that I really enjoyed this. I too am not a fan of telesnaps, and I don't tend to listen to the audio. I like the visual. If it's something that's been made previously, I really enjoyed it. I think it's one of the best, if not the best, animation to date. And you know, if it carries along this line, I'm looking forward to further releases. So it's a hit from me.
Special guest star Ben.
Hello. Yes, I'm going to be quick. I think
Don't be put off by Jason in the corner going, come on.
I'm not doing anything. I'm sat here minding my own business.
Yeah, I enjoyed this. I agree with James that I think that that this is one of the best animations we've had so far. Great likenesses, fantastic detail, really nice and colourful, but at the same time the black and white's very atmospheric as well. I think even something like the Recon, they made an effort to put a lot of, you know, like not nice pictures and animation and so forth into it. It's rather than just, you know, telesnaps and audio, and you know, they can really drag some of them, but this one's good, and I think the extras are very good as well, as much as they could do. As P-Bal mentioned, unfortunately a lot of the cast weren't available or weren't willing to be available, so they just had to make do with what they had. As I said, if you're a fan of Chris Thompson, this is perfect release for you. So yeah, I say thumbs up.
Hey, well, yeah, I liked it before. I thought it was an enjoyable watch, and it'll obviously make it more accessible for a lot more people who see this as a sort of routine, and that's great, and it's a positive thing, and it brings you to 60s Doctor Who, and I think it's a thumbs up from me. So all that leaves me to say then is thank you, gentlemen, for joining me again on this video.
Our pleasure as always.
Yep, absolutely.
Thank you very much.
And don't forget to like, subscribe, look at the other videos, do nice things, order things from the Phantom website. And we'll see you again soon. Bye.